Oh god, this movie is awful. I mean it. My list of the worst movies I've ever seen, it's pretty short. Blackenstein, Savior, The Relic, Pokemon, that's what comes to mind immediately. But now Bloodrayne has joined the list. I don't know exactly what Uwe Boll's problem is, but he must really hate video games, because as he's released movies not related to video games that have been received well, it's his game adaptations that have given him the reputation of a modern-day Ed Wood. What really chaps my ass is this movie had a decent cast. In House of the Dead, he casted a bunch of nobodies. In Alone in the Dark, he had Christian Slater and Tara Reid. Not exactly impressive, but better. This movie has Christina Logan, Michael Madsen, Ben Kingsley, Michelle Rodriguez, Meatloaf, and Billy Zane. I don't know much about the video game. I've never played it, but from my understanding, it's pretty popular, so you have a good cast, a good premise, and what went wrong? I can only say it must have been Uwe Boll. The problem is, absolutely nothing in the movie makes sense, and I very quickly lost interest in the plot. Christina Logan plays Rain, a Dhampir. Her father was a vampire, her mother was a human. The issue I have with that is that she claims her father raped her mother, but then she says this happened in front of her eyes. What? Logic fail. I mean, I guess he could have raped her, got her pregnant, and then raped her again, right? Except when it goes to the flashback, he doesn't rape her at all, he just tosses her in a bed and kills her with a sword. I guess you could say that it's still possible, but that's just too gross for me. Dhampirs are said to not have the urge to drink blood like vampires do, but Rain is showing going into a bloodlust frenzy early on in the movie, drinking blood and biting people indiscriminately like a shark in a feeding frenzy, even attacking her friend. The main focus of the movie is a group of vampire hunters called the Brimstone Society, who are after a vampire named Kagan, played by Ben Kingsley. They think they need a Dhampir because, well, why not? One of the first things they do is find out that there's possibly a Dhampir at a carnival, and this is Rain, who is held captive there and shown off as a sideshow freak. They burn her with water, even though the movie states that Dhampirs aren't harmed by water. She's shown being harmed by water a few times. They cut her, and then they make her drink goat's blood and wow people when her wounds heal. Some asshole tries to rape her, and she bites him and escapes, killing a bunch of other people and biting some of them. The Brimstone idiots show up, and everyone at the carnival is just going about their business, despite there being corpses laying on the ground. They then proceed to start beheading the corpses. I guess this is so they can't come back as vampires? And it sort of makes sense. But what doesn't is that no one reacts to it. I mean, it's screwed up enough that no one reacts to the corpses at all, but then a bunch of guys ride in on horses and start mutilating corpses, and no one even bats an eye. They then find Rain's friend, who she had bitten, and just straight up murder her. I mean, I guess she might have turned into a vampire, though that doesn't make much sense at all, actually. Do Dhampirs turn other people into vampires? Then again, does it matter? Nothing in this movie is consistent, and once again no one reacts to them stabbing some random woman. So right there, in the first 20 minutes, I lost all interest in the film. The rest of it has Rain eventually being captured by and then teaming up with Brimstone, a bunch of battles that are really nothing more than a delivery system for buckets of blood spurting everywhere, and eventually a showdown between Rain and Kagan. The only thing I can say about this movie that isn't an abomination is the acting, and in this case I'm talking only about Ben Kingsley, who did a good job despite being in such an awful movie. The rest of the cast seems bored or distracted. This is a movie that lays down rules and then doesn't follow them. It's a movie where things happen for no reason and things stop happening for no reason. It's a movie that makes about as much sense as a soup sandwich. I can't even enjoy it as a splatter-filled B-movie with loads of blood and tits, as none of the action is stylish, everything comes off as cheap, and honestly, it wasn't worth killing who knows how many of my brain cells just to see 15 seconds of Christina Logan's boobs in bad lighting, in a sex scene that happened only because Uwe Boll had to check it off the list. Amazingly, this movie has gotten 2 sequels, though they went from direct to video, and what's amazing is that, from what I've heard, the third one wasn't that bad. though as it's a video release, I won't be reviewing it for this feature. But as for the original Bloodrayne, it's a movie that is a little more than a loose collection of scenes that may or may not have anything to do with each other, and a mess of a story that contradicts itself at every turn. Everything about it is cheap and tacky, even the swords look like shiny plastic. I can't really say in so many words how bad this was. I could just basically browbeat you with it until it starts coming off as mean, but let me put it to you this way. I had to concentrate hard on restraining myself from simply turning the movie off halfway through it and writing it off as unreviewable, meaning that it would not even be given the dignity of a score. But as I did manage to force my way through it, I'll say what you probably already figured out by now. 1 out of a possible 10.